Welcome to the Shannon Fox Show, the podcast where we empower career moms to thrive. I'm your host, Shannon Fox, a career advancement coach dedicated to helping moms like you leverage your strengths to land your dream job, secure that well-deserved raise, or finally get that promotion, all without sacrificing time with your family. Each week, I'll bring you actionable strategies, inspiring stories, and strength-based tools to help you align your career with your natural gifts and step into your full potential. So, if you're ready to stop feeling stuck and start building the career and life you deserve, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today I have Tilan Legierson, and she combines her 30 plus years of global experience as an accredited leadership coach, mediator, trial, and UN human rights, plus war crimes lawyer and HR manager to help 10x leaders' confidence, influence, and impact using her signature Hardwire for Leadership system. Welcome, Tilan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm really excited to be here.
So let's start by maybe telling us how you got to this career path.
Yes, I guess it's always a really long story, but the bottom line is that I've always been quite an ambitious person, as in I've always wanted to try and keep growing and keep changing and also following my passion. So I started out as a lawyer and I was really passionate about human rights, and I then decided to first become like an attorney at law to really get good at that. And I did that. And then I always wanted to work for the United Nations, which is like, you know, the Valhalla for human rights lawyers. And so I really worked on that. And then I worked there for 12 years. I worked in Cambodia, in Bosnia, in Geneva, in The Hague. And then my daughter actually was really ill, and she's perfectly fine now. And I needed to kind of, rethink what I wanted. And one of the things was, this was when we were living in the Netherlands, where I'm from, and I was having a great career for the UN, and we decided to move to Australia. And here, when I came here 14 years ago, I had to kind of reinvent myself again. And I went back to my passion, which was because I'd seen so much bad things and bad communication. I really wanted to become a mediator, and that's what I did. And then I started my own business because that's me. I love working for myself and I love doing things I'm passionate about. So 10 years ago, I started my own business, and I was working a lot with teams and leaders where there was conflict, low morale. And then I realized that at some point, hey, the leaders need a lot of support. And I look back on my own journey as a leader, and I never really got any official training. I was a lawyer, was just thrown in, okay, you're a good lawyer, so you'll be a good leader. And so I really became more interested in coaching leaders. And that's where I'm today. So I'm at that great age where I can combine all my passions, and I feel the puzzle is complete. So I work with leaders and their teams, and I do a lot of training and coaching, and that's it. And I work with people from all over the world online, which I love.
Yes, I love how online can make the world a little bit smaller place. So let's say we have some people in the audience, some moms that might be facing a situation at work that requires a difficult conversation, and they're hesitating because of the concerns about offending someone or losing control of the situation. What kind of advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Yeah, so I think that's so important, and that's where I'm coming from, empowering people. So if you look at my career, it's always about empowering people. I think what often happens with people in general, but especially with women, is that we try to want to keep everything harmonious, and we are afraid to actually say something, because when we say something, we worry it will escalate. So that's one end of the spectrum, and then there's another end of the spectrum in which people speak up, but the way they speak up is not very effective because they speak up in a way other people can't hear them. So my advice for people is to always speak up for yourself and feel empowered, because if you don't, things will fester, and you will feel, yeah, upset with yourself that you didn't speak up, that you didn't stand up for your own needs, but do it in a way that people can actually hear you. And so you should think about what you say, but also make sure that you're in the right state of mind. So I always say, speak up in anger and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. I think that's not me. I don't remember who that
Right.
quote is from. But yeah, so speaking up is so important. And it's something that I try to do, even though it can be difficult and it takes courage.
Right.
But you also role model then for others.
Yeah. What happens if someone may have not empowered them, not felt empowered and not stood up and not had that conversation, and now they're wrestling with that feeling of like, I should have said something, you know, do you know, and now they're questioning themselves. What advice could you maybe give to them
Yeah.
for
So
that?
first of all, I hope I'm going to be able to share with you guys how to speak up. But I think when you have that, we often doubt ourselves. I always like to go and check with someone who I personally really respect. And so that I can say to that person, hey, can I run this past you? I've got this story in my head and it's coming back all the time. What do you think? Should I have spoken up, or am I making too much out of this? Sometimes we can take things a little bit too personal. But what I often see is that people go and check with 9 or 10 people or all their colleagues. And
Right.
I always say, just keep it to 1 or 2 people that you trust, because you don't want to be like the person in the office who's venting all the time and then when they say, yeah, you're right, you should speak up, or maybe you're making a mole. What is it? A mole out of a
Mountain, a bowl out of a mountain.
mountain, a mountain out of a
Mountain.
molehill. Then I'd say, okay, maybe just relax. Maybe I'm taking this too personal. But if they say, no, you have a point there, then I say, okay, I need to speak up, because I really feel if we don't speak up, we let other people take our personal power away, and I really believe in personal power.
Right.
And so if everybody chipping away on you at your personal power, and you become kind like a zombie version of yourself because you don't dare to speak up.
Right. So what way would you advise people to speak up?
That the first part is how to mentally prepare yourself, but the second part is to speak up. So I've called it drama, and the first one is describe the facts. So often what people do is when they speak up, they say things, but it's their version of the facts. So I'm originally a lawyer, so I always want to stay to the facts. So if somebody says like, oh, I feel yesterday you were bullying me, when you start with that, that's already, that person sees only red flags and they'll feel offended. But if you stay to the facts and say like, hey, for the last 3 meetings, you interrupted me while I was speaking, that is a fact that nobody can deny. So describe the facts. And then the R is for report the impact. And the impact is where you use, if you're comfortable with the F word, I always joke about it, but with F word, I mean feel. So,
Yes.
some
Yes.
people are not comfortable with that. So you can also say, oh, but normally I would say that made me feel as if, what I was saying was actually not valued. Or
Right.
it could say the impact it had on me is that, there was no feeling. No, now I use the F word again. Anyway, the impact was I wasn't valued. And so then the A stands for acknowledge the needs of other people. Often what we do is when we're speaking up, we're so it's all about us. But if we actually acknowledge that the other person has also some needs, we take the sting away. So I always say, like, I acknowledge that you know a lot about this. And so maybe you got very passionate and interrupted me because, you know, you wanted to say your thing and this is your baby or your project.
Right.
So, and then the M is make your own needs known. However, you know, I also have worked on this particular topic and I have something interesting to share as well. And then the A is stands for ask what you want them to do differently. So I said, like, so next time when I speak, you know, could you just try and just let me finish and then say what you have to say? So if you combine that together, it is actually a very powerful statement that doesn't offend people and
Mhm.
also then actually helps people to understand where you're coming from and what you would like them to do, and not in a way of you telling them off.
Yeah, I like that. So if we, I love that it's something easy to remember. I love acronyms like that, like drama. So let's say one of our listeners is sitting here and she's got an issue with maybe one of her colleagues or, a client, but that conversation is just, it feels really, really intimidating and it's anxiety inducing. So she would bring in, how can you show us how she would use this drama formula
Yeah.
to address that?
Yeah. So I would suggest you go first to that roadmap where I also discuss how to prepare yourself. So one of the things that often happens, I don't know if it ever happened to you, Shannon, definitely happened to me, that I am going into a room and think I'm going to talk about this. And then
Yes.
somehow the whole conversation gets sidelined and this other person takes over and there's nothing left. So I would say, like, make sure that what you want to talk about and that is then going to be the topic, and bring people back. So if I say, yeah, I want to talk about how we work together, and then they say, oh yeah, Tom said yesterday this, da, 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 da. Now just bring it back to that. So to make sure that that's then going to happen, and then have that little drama spiel, and then you can talk even more. Part of the preparation is also, I always talk about, to try and visualize yourself walking out feeling really like, whew, hey, because that is the word that people use. They feel relieved when they speak up. They feel really good. So I get so often text messages from people like, Tilan, I finally did it. I
Right.
spoke up and oh my God, I feel so good. And so I want people to feel that that could be the end result. And also, as a human rights lawyer, I believe we all have a voice. So to really give yourself a little pep talk and say, like, I'm allowed to say this. This, you know, I've checked with someone else and they agree on it as well. This is something which is important for me. And don't be afraid, because as a mediator, I always work with conflict, but people are so afraid things escalate. But they don't if you have open and honest conversations. But if you get too emotional, if you start accusing people, then it becomes, yeah, more difficult. But if you can keep in control of your own emotions, and that means that you need, again, I always don't give the other person the power to push a few buttons, hot buttons, and you're all upset. So,
Right.
so really work on yourselves and say, okay, this is really important for me. I want to say this, but I want to say it in a way that other people can hear me, and I'm not going to allow the other person to trigger me. And what I do for that is to really try and keep in my prefrontal cortex and don't go into my fight, flight, or freeze mode, or like you said, anxiety, to really try be present, be in the moment.
Mhm.
I look maybe at a few colors in the room. I check. I always like to feel grounded. I put my feet on the ground and say,
Yeah.
okay, I am here. I'm safe. I'm going to speak up. And this is And I'm going to do it in a way that this person can hear me. Because where I'm coming from is if we would all speak up and communicate better, the world would be a better place. Because often there's so many things that happen because people misunderstand each other. And it's often when you're as a mediator, like it's often just not listening well or not using the right language or making up stories in your head. And
Right.
so if you communicate, people will often say, oh, yes, oh, gosh, I didn't think of that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't even realize I was interrupting you. Yes, I can be a little bit, I'm an extrovert and da, 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 da. And so of how I coach a lot of people how to listen better. And one of the things, if you're on the other side of the spectrum, is that you just need to kind of purse your lips and
Mm-hmm.
just listen instead of, you know,
Right.
and making people feel understood and listened to is a powerful tool as a leader and in the workplace.
Absolutely. I think that that's so important because I do agree that a lot of times it's miscommunication. You, especially we live in such a world right now where a lot of it is on our phone and you'll see a text and you take it one way where the other person had no intentions of that, but we're busy and we're in and we see that and we're like, oh, well, they did this. But being able to go and have a conversation face to face or pick up the phone and call and say, I received your text. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
what it was meaning. Could we have a conversation about that? But doing it, like you said, non-emotional, trying not to be confrontational, but trying to do it so that you kind of get on the same playing field again and you're connected again. Sounds right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the world is very polarized at the moment, and I think it starts with us trying to communicate well. And we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I joke sometimes. I said I'm not the Dalai Lama myself yet, but if I say something wrong or if things are misunderstood, say, oh, hold on a moment. I think I didn't do a good job in explaining this to you. So let me try again. And
Yeah,
instead of, putting the blame with other people that they misunderstood you, we often need to work on our own communication as well.
absolutely. My husband
Yeah.
and I have the word rephrase. So if I say something or he says something and we take it, maybe like, I don't think that's how we were supposed to take it. We'll say, hey, could you rephrase that? And then we'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to say it. I'm sorry. How did
I
you,
love
how
that.
did you
Yeah.
take that? Because this was my intention. And it's just that quick, like we've learned not to take it personally, but we know that, hold on, maybe I communicated it because I'm rushing off to do something and I may have said it way more direct, way more snarky than I meant to. So,
Yeah.
or he may be doing, whatever it may be, but it's one of those fast words that we use in that moment to just say, hold on, stop, let's communicate and connect again. Could you rephrase, please?
Oh,
And
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, and yeah, I have been with my husband forever, and he's Scottish, and yeah, we have our own miscommunications
yeah.
from time to time, and definitely, yeah,
So I
and
think you can use this technique inside your home as well, but it's great because we have a lot of career moms with us. And in the workplace, you have so many different variables that are coming in that resolving conflict because you're working with these people, you're with these people more than you are with your family most of the time. So being able to have good communication between you is good. And also to feel like your voice matters because it does matter. I love that,
yeah,
the empowerment of your voice. I'm all about empowering as well. So I
yeah,
love
and
that.
yeah. And I think often, like you said, people don't mean to do things, but they just forgot to invite you for a meeting. But if we don't tell, if we that's about boundaries as well. If we don't tell things that upset us, or then people don't always know. Some people just don't have that inner knowing. Oh, I did something wrong, and so we need to tell them, but in a way that is non-confrontational. The reality is that a difficult conversation, I don't really like to label it that way, but it works the best. But I always think if you say it's difficult conversation, you already set yourself up to think it's going to be difficult. So it's better to just call it a conversation. But the reality is that, as human beings, we prefer to do things that give us pleasure and stay away from things that give us pain. So the reality is it's not easy for anyone. Also myself, people always think, oh yeah, but you do it all the time. No, but that doesn't mean that I don't need to prepare myself for it. But if you want to grow as a human being, if you want to get out of your comfort zone and get more confident, it's when we need to have these conversations. So yes, it's easier to, go home, drink a bottle of wine or a glass, let me say glass, watch Netflix, than to phone your mother-in-law and have a conversation that needs to be had. But so for me, I always kind of look at it like, yeah, Tilan, it's going to be difficult and you're not feeling very comfortable about it, but the benefits are going to be really high. And we know we want to stay away from things that are difficult, but I personally not going to do that. I'm just going to take over that part of my brain that wants me to stay safe and stay happy. Just going to say, no, you're going to have to do it, because I also feel if we lose sleep over stuff, that's my rule. If I lose sleep over something, then I'm going to have to speak up. Because if I don't, it might end up in an ulcer one day because I just keep it all inside. So that's my little rule. Sometimes people say things and I'm like, water of a duck. But sometimes I think, no, actually, this is not okay. And then I decide to speak up. You just don't want to be that person who's the whole day telling people like, when you did this, then I made me feel that. But just use it for important conversations.
Right. Is all of this in that the difficult conversations roadmap that's below? Okay.
I should have had it in front of me, Shannon, but I don't. It's like about 14 pages, and it just explains about the process, like all the how to get yourself into the mode. There's 5 steps for that, and then how to have this difficult conversation. And I'm on a mission for people to have these difficult conversations and communicate better. And like I said, especially for us women, like we should be able to, be confident, to negotiate, to speak up. And so I know this roadmap will help. So I hope people who are watching this will have a look at it and try it. And like you said, you don't want to start with the difficult conversation, with the most crucial conversation you'll ever have in your life. It's like you don't go to the gym and start, pushing 100 kilos. You just start with a smaller thing, and then you do it and you think, oh, yeah, I did that. It worked well. And that's what I do with my coaching clients. And then you go further and further. And then before you know it, you just make it like second nature, like you and your husband are doing, like, hey, let's rephrase that. And yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I think we all learned a lot, and I know that I did, and I'm going to be able to use these with me in my business. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was really nice. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Shannon Fox Show. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another career mom who's ready to thrive. Don't forget to grab your free Mastery Zone Discovery Quiz, where you'll uncover your strengths and take the first step toward aligning your career with your superpowers. You can also connect with me on Instagram at the.shannon.fox for more tips and inspiration. Until next time, remember, you're not just building a career, you're creating a life you love. Let's make this happen.